failure is an option. So the other day I was on Twitter and I follow different people and hear different motivational quotes, read them, and I came across one that said failure is not an option. And it immediately struck me that I don't agree with that. Failure is an option, and it's one that we probably don't talk about enough. To say failure is not an option, is sort of cliche. You see it in movies, in the big dramatic scenes. Failure is not an option, and in the movie everything's going to turn out right. Well, real life, as you know, is not a movie, and everything doesn't always turn out all right. And as a leader, if you walk around telling people failure is not an option, I think you're not being truthful with them, and I don't think you're being authentic to yourself either. And I think people need to know that failure is an option. And my personal belief, and I guess technique, if you want, is to lean into that, to recognize it, and put it out there and say, yeah, failure is an option. If we don't do the right things, if we don't make the right decisions, failure is certainly an option. So, but let's talk about failure and what that means. And so, to me, you're going to have failures along the way, but it's how you react to them, how you deal with failure that makes all the difference. John Maxwell has a great book called Failing Forward that I've read a couple of times, and it talks about learning from failure. That's the big thing we talk about here at Service Express. The big thing I talk about as a leader is learning from failure. Make mistakes, just don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. That's going to be a deathly failure, meaning it's going to lead to a big failure that you can't recover from. But if you make mistakes and you learn from them and you fail forward, that's how you grow, that's how you learn, and that's what leads you to achieve. Now, big failure, I'm not a believer in, because I think if you keep learning and growing, there's never a big failure. Failure is an option when it comes to you may not close the deal. You may not hire the person that you really wanted to hire. Whatever it may be in business or in life, you are going to fail. As an athlete, you can't think about failures. If you're a baseball player, you got to be focused on getting a hit. If you're a golfer, you got to be focused on, making that putt. You don't want to be thinking about what if I miss. In that moment, you don't want to think about failure. You want to focus only on the positive. However, if you talk to baseball players, if you talk to golfers, people know that baseball is a game of failure. They know you're going to strike out. You're going to hit into double plays. You're going to fail 3 out of 10 times, right? If you're in the pros, 7 out of 10 times, and still make the Hall of Fame, be a 300 hitter. In golf, you're going to have bad rounds, you're going to miss putts. But how you process that failure, learn from it, compartmentalize with it, and then deal with it and move on. That's the difference between winning and losing, in my opinion, in the long run. At Service Express, we talk a lot about our up and to the right growth trajectory, our double-digit growth year over year. But we know that within that double-digit growth, we've had a number of failures, a lot of failures. And most of everything we do right today, we did wrong another time. And I would say even on that double-digit growth, I've been here, it'll be 22 years in August. In 2 years, we didn't do double-digit growth. We only grew 9%. We were close, but as you might be able to tell, that 9% sticks with me. But I look at both of those years, and what did we learn from that year that we did not have double-digit growth? What did we apply going forward? And those lessons learned led us to double-digit growth going forward from that. So let's lean into failure. Let's recognize it. Have a plan B, have options around there. As a leader, your team is going to look to you and expect you to say, what's the backup plan? If this doesn't work, what do we do? How do we pivot? Where do we go? That's your responsibility as a leader, to have that answer, to not panic when things don't go your way, when you have a failure, but to have a plan, have a pivot, react to it appropriately, and keep moving forward. And ultimately, as Rocky said, that's how winning is done.